Hello everyone, I'm Fozzie or Cam, and I'm here as always with my co-host Will. How are you doing today, Will?
I'm doing great, Cam. How about you?
I'm doing fantastic. Today we have to talk about the Oscars, which just took place pretty recently. We all have thoughts, opinions. And then we have something else that we all have thoughts and opinions on, and that's the Spider-Man brand new day trailer. And then finally, we have some predictions slash thoughts slash ideas on the NBA Finals that we'd like to go over. Like who do we think is going to be there, who's not, things of that nature. But yeah, without further ado, Will, I kind of just want to dive into some Oscars talk. Overall, I was pretty happy with this year's Oscars. I mean, there are some minor grievances I have, which I'll get to, but overall, I was pretty happy, and I was amazed by Conan O'Brien's hosting job. He finds a way to make me laugh every time I see him on a screen or listen to him on a podcast or whatever. He's so entertaining and charismatic. His wit is really helpful because, I don't know if you noticed, but there are some moments in the Oscars that are kind of awkward, and he's kind of able to make it not awkward. That's just kind of one of the skills that he has as a comedian and as a host or whatever. So yeah, I was blown away by that again, and it seems like he's going to be coming back for the next couple of years to host the Oscars, which is something that I am totally here for, and I'm totally happy about because I thought he did a great job here. The wins I thought were all very much deserving wins. Obviously, I didn't see every film and every category, but everything that won, I was happy with. I thought it was really cool that Frankenstein got all kind of the tech awards, besides maybe losing Best Sound to F1, which, I'm surprised he even got nominated for an Oscar, where, there are some movies that I watched that I liked, like Jay Kelly, The New Knives Out, whatever it may be, that I thought were better than that movie that didn't get Oscar nominations. But that's kind of a hard thing to complain about when it comes to the Oscars, like what did get nominated, what didn't, because that just goes so broad, and then it kind of gets personal too. Like some of these movies that I like that came out this year are really mainly only resonating with me because I have a sort of personal tie to it or whatever it may be. So it's hard to get critical there, so I'm not gonna really. The speeches I thought were pretty good. I had a few issues with some of the presenters not being very funny. The what was it? The bridesmaids, I believe that little joke with Melissa McCarthy, Kristen Wiig, and all them. I thought it was funny, and I think they kind of acknowledged how long it went on, but it did go on for quite a long time, and that's just an example of one of them that just didn't work for me. And another one is something me and Will had talked about during the show, which was Robert Downey Jr. and Chris Evans' weirdly bad presentation, which, that kind of shocks you because, Robert Downey Jr., he's this funny, lively guy. He's never failed to make me laugh. He can be sincere, but he's got an energy about him. You know what I mean? Um, so yeah, I was a little disappointed when both him and Chris didn't do anything that made me laugh when they went up to present. But if that's the worst of the issues in the Oscars, that's not too bad. But there were some presenters I liked. I liked how minimalistic Culkin kept it. I'm a big Kieran Culkin fan, so I was actually I was a little disappointed at first. I was like, oh, why didn't he say something funny like Kieran Culkin usually says? Um, but I don't know. I think he still came out looking better than every other presenter because he didn't make fun of anyone. He didn't do any crazy jokes. He just went up there, made fun of Sean Penn, and left. And that brings me to, the Sean Penn issue. I'm glad Kieran Culkin poked fun at him not wanting to be there. I get it. He's trying to make a statement, sort of, and he has things that are more important to him than being at the Oscars. Um, in my opinion, if you're not going to be at an award show as prestigious as the Oscars, it makes it tough for me to support a win, you know what I mean? So I wasn't thrilled. that Sean Penn wasn't there to accept his award. I'm glad Kieran poked fun at that. And there are people like Delroy Lindo who he didn't clap when Sean Penn won, and I kind of don't blame him. It's a little bit disrespectful to do something like that. Um, and while I don't I know why he's doing it or whatever, it still feels a little iffy to me, in my opinion. And finally, I just want to talk about the musical numbers. I thought that it was kind of safe a little bit in comparison to other years. I think back to something like the "I'm Just Ken" performance, which I thought was crazy and lively, and the Sinner's performance was good. It just wasn't all that it could have been. And I actually heard someone say, I think we confuse with how good that song is with how good the scene is. And I kind of understand where that's coming from. I think that song works so well in the movie because of how good the scene is, which is definitely a thing that could be true. And then the golden performance from K-pop Demon Hunters, I thought was it was safe. It was good. I didn't expect anything more or less. But I kind of wanted maybe another sort of musical performance, but I get it. They kind of want to constrict the length of this thing, despite it still being like 3.5 hours long. But overall, I was happy with the wins. The best picture going on one battle. Ryan Coogler getting an adapted screenplay Oscar. Michael B. Jordan winning the best actor. Amy Madigan, and I thought the casting award was a cool addition. Still no stunt person award, which strikes me as weird. Um, Very weird because some people do a lot, especially these days with all these superhero movies and action movies. And I thought the In Memoriam section was beautiful as well. So, yeah, overall, very solid Oscars. Continues to keep that Conan quality that we had last year, and I was overall pretty impressed with a few little nitpicks, but overall impressed. How did you feel about the Oscars this year, Will?
Yeah, I thought it was a very solid Oscars too, and it honestly exceeded my expectations because to me, what I've come to realize about the Oscars over the years is I feel like it has this issue of starting off strong and finishing strong, but kind of being lackluster in the middle section. And while it is important, to give awards to folks like the people putting together, special effects and costumes for movies, giving those people their spotlight is super important because it goes, so far beyond the directors and actors to make movies successful. So I'm not saying it's not good that those people are getting their spotlight, but I just felt in past years the Oscars could have done things to make that middle section more compelling. So going into the Oscars this year, I was like, okay, it'll probably catch my attention at the beginning with Conan's monologue, and then at the end, when we find out who won Best Picture and some other major awards, but I wasn't expecting to be as locked in as I was during the middle section of it this year. Um, like you, Cam, I thought the tribute to those who had passed away, including Rob Reiner and Diane Keaton and Robert Redford, I thought it was just touching and beautifully done. I thought Jimmy Kimmel was once again in peak comedic form during his bit at the Oscars this year.
Hmm.
Every time I
Yeah,
watch
another good presenter. I was
yeah,
happy with it.
every time I watch Jimmy Kimmel, I'm just like, wow, I am just blown away by how natural and just comfortable in his skin that guy looks every time um that he's on camera, and I thought it was great. I mean, not that it's shocking that one battle after another won Best Picture, but a little bit surprising from the standpoint of that Sinners got like a record-breaking number of nominations and didn't win Best Picture. But hey, it's great to have surprises because it keeps things interesting. And the two things that I'm about to criticize, even though I'm going to criticize them, I actually thought they contributed to how solid the Oscars was this year because I was actually fascinated by how bad they were. And even if they were bad, they still kept me on the edge of my seat and watching instead of being bored, which is what's happened to me in the past during the middle section of the Oscars. And that's what you mentioned, Cam, with Robert Downey Jr. and Chris Evans. Shockingly, I thought they were awful. Just awful.
Yeah.
Cringeworthy, not funny in the least. And like you said, it's so surprising with Robert Downey Jr. especially. Chris Evans, it makes sense because Steve Rogers is more of a dramatic character. It's not like he's, out there cracking jokes left and right. But Tony Stark, comedy is so much of what made that character so great with all the different comedic and funny lines that he says. And comedy is just in Robert Downey Jr.'s bones. So, like you said, to see him be that bad during that presentation, I thought was just really disappointing. And then another thing was the two Grogu bits, the one with Sigourney
Mm.
Weaver and Pedro Pascal and Grogu, and then Conan O'Brien and Grogu before the commercial break of that segment. It is just so annoying to me. I get why it's being done from a marketing standpoint, but it is so annoying to me how Disney and Lucasfilm are just completely moving away from all the aspects that made Grogu compelling in the first place and just going all in on this Grogu cute thing and just completely ignoring all the other great aspects that made him compelling in the first place. And the if someone had no idea really about Grogu and had never seen The Mandalorian, they would watch him at the Oscars on Sunday and have no idea that he has all these other elements that were so present, especially during the first couple seasons. So I am going to cross my fingers and hope that the Mandalorian and Grogu movie will portray him differently, but I was just deeply disappointed by the Grogu portrayal at the Oscars, and I feel like, and let me say again, I like you, Cam. I thought this was a very solid Oscars. I thought there were great aspects to it. I give it a positive review overall this year, absolutely. But I thought it was such a disappointing and blown opportunity on Marvel and Star Wars parts because the Oscars is an award ceremony that, for the large part, completely ignores stuff like Marvel and Star Wars. I know Black Panther got nominated for Best Picture back in 2018, but aside from that, you don't really see Marvel and Star Wars movies or those types of movies in general getting nominated at the Oscars. So the fact that the Oscars was including Marvel and Star Wars this year, I thought that was such a great way to attract new viewers to the show, and maybe encourage the Oscars to do more Marvel and Star Wars bits in future years when other movies of theirs are coming out. But the fact that the Marvel and Star Wars bits were as bad as they were just deeply disappointed me. And I thought it was just such a blown opportunity on Marvel and Star Wars parts to have, even if their movies aren't going to get nominated, I thought it was such a blown opportunity on their part to have skits related to their films be included at the Oscars in the years ahead.
Yeah, I agree for sure. And I'm actually, you raise a point. I'm interested to see how the future goes for Marvel movies and Star Wars movies at the Oscars in general. I'm interested to see if people will start to grow more like into them from a critical point of view. I wonder if they're gonna get the not the recognition they deserve, really, but some sort of more Academy recognition than they are right now. I'd be interested to see that down the line. But speaking of Marvel, well, we got a big
Yep.
trailer. That's Spider-Man Brand New Day, and honestly, I mean, it was something here on the podcast we've had to do ever since Thor: Love and Thunder is not get too carried away by trailers. Um, But, in terms of trailers, and maybe I said this before and been wrong, but in terms of trailers, well, I thought this was everything I could have asked for from a Marvel movie standpoint. I thought this Spider-Man trailer looks fantastic. I mean, there are things maybe I could point out, like I don't know, Ned and MJ coming back is a little bit weird. But then again, I don't care. I think that's still pretty cool that they are coming back. This looks like it has a really cool concept to it. It actually looks like it has a really nice look to it. Something I noticed, well, it kind of looked like a fan film a little bit. I don't know if you can kind of pick up what I'm putting down when I say this, but I just saw it was a look to it that was different compared to the first three Spider-Man movies. And it's not a bad look or anything. It's just different. It took a little bit of getting used to, but then I realized, oh, that's actually a cool thing, and it looks different. And I said this before, I'm all in for a movie not looking like an Amazon commercial, and instead looking like a real movie where people put thought into how it looks. And that seems to be what we're getting here. Cool to see the Punisher involved, along with Mark Ruffalo as Bruce Banner. I'm interested to see if the Hulk will end up playing a role in this. Bet it will, but still interested nonetheless. I think the suit looks great. Tom looks in peak form. The villains we have here, like the Scorpion, finally paying off that end credit scene, super cool. Um, Honestly, well, this trailer, yeah, was pretty much everything I could ask for. You got any thoughts?
Yeah, so right off the bat, let me just say this. It's a good trailer, unquestionably, and I look forward to seeing the movie. I will be there on day one to see it. So let me just get that out of the way first. These, though, are the questions that Spider-Man Brand New Day is going to have to answer for me before I can get to peak level of excitement about the film. One is this Spider-Man No Way Home. One of the things that makes that movie so incredible is that it had such a large cast of characters with Peter and Ned and MJ and Doctor Strange and Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man and Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man and all of the villains from the Tobey and Andrew Spider-Man movies, and yet they were able to make the movie work even though there were that many characters. And, I thought they did such a great job to where even though they had multiple villains in the film, they still made the Green Goblin the number one villain and made it clear that he was the lead villain um, in that film. So that movie did such a great job balancing multiple characters. Now we look at Spider-Man Brand New Day, and there's going to be a similar theme of multiple characters. We're going to have Peter and Ned and MJ. We're going to have Scorpion. We're going to have Bruce Banner. We're going to have Frank Castle. The Hand from Daredevil is going to be coming back. Sadie Sink is going to be in this movie. So there's going to be a lot of characters in this film, and now, I will say this. If John Watts was directing this movie, I would be a little bit less concerned about how many characters there are in the film because he's proven that he can manage a large cast of characters well with Spider-Man No Way Home. We are not going to have John Watts directing this film, though. We're going to have a new director. And since this movie has a new director, Dustin Daniel Creighton, I believe is his name. I know he
Yeah.
also directed Shang-Chi.
And just did Wonder Man recently.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, but boy, he's really making a name for himself, at least somewhat in
Yeah.
the Marvel world. But since he is a new director and new to the Tom Holland Spider-Man universe, and since John Watts did such a great job with the original trilogy, he is going to have to prove to me that he can manage such a large cast of characters as well as John Watts did. So that's one thing. And then the second thing is how is the Punisher and the Hand, who are these the Hand is from an R-rated project in Daredevil, and Frank Castle is an R-rated character. These characters are being put into a PG-13 Spider-Man movie. Now, if the movie's going to be more kind of dark and gritty and street level, then I think it could work. But they're going to have to prove to me that they could do a good job with those characters. And then with the Hand, I feel like with like Daredevil season two and the Defenders, there was a compelling storyline with the Hand, but then they were kind of moved on from, and things went back to Wilson Fisk with Daredevil season three and Daredevil Born Again season one, now going into season two. Now, we've seen with Wilson Fisk that even though we are now on round three of the Matt Murdock Wilson Fisk rivalry. They had their first go round in Daredevil season one, then again in Daredevil season three, and now again in these first two seasons of Daredevil Born Again. And Marvel has proven that they're able to keep making the Matt Murdock Wilson Fisk rivalry compelling and new and fresh, even though they've done it now for a third time. So maybe with the Hand, they have a new and compelling storyline that they can bring in, similarly to what Marvel's been able to do with Daredevil and Wilson Fisk. But I am also like, it did kind of feel like that storyline was explored and then kind of wrapped up and moved on from in the Defenders and Daredevil. And Brand New Day is going to have to prove to me that there is more storyline to be told with the Hand, or if it should have just been left at rest prior to it being brought back now.
Yeah, it's a good question, but part of me thinks that a lot of those villains we saw, like the boomerang guy, the Hand, Scorpion, I think that might just be part of a montage in the movie, and they may not play a significant role. I don't know that for sure, but that wouldn't shock me. But yeah, again, it's hard to know because we don't know who the villain is, you know? We don't know who Peter's enemy is in this movie. So it's a good question. And that was a good point you brought up with them actually being able to not redo, but in a sense redo villains. Like in Daredevil, they did that in a good way. So it's possible to do something like that, like with the Hand, or I don't know, do it again with the Punisher, or whatever, in this movie and make it work. Um, so yeah, I think that it's definitely possible to make that work. I don't know. Did you have any not issues? Did you have any thoughts on how the film looks, Will? Because that was the biggest thing I noticed is how different it looks.
Um, yeah. I mean, like I thought it looked good visually, but it definitely had the feel of a whole new thing. And I think that's smart. I think it's good, for things to have a new vibe to keep them fresh, but this very much feels different from what I guess you could call the Home trilogy with Homecoming and Far From Home and No Way Home all having home in their title. This is not a continuation of that trilogy. This is literally called Spider-Man Brand New Day. Like this is the start of a whole new thing. So visually I thought it looked good, but it definitely has the feel of something new and not a continuation of the prior Tom Holland trilogy.
Yeah, 100% a new feel, a new vibe. And I think honestly that that is a pretty good thing. I'm happy that we're switching it up. Yeah, I'm interested to see what else we get from this. I'm glad this trailer's finally out. Um, because we were getting a little worried about that. And yeah, I'm interested to see how the rest of the looks we see in this movie. I'm interested, really. The discourse online has been pretty positive. It's been breaking records with the trailer views, which
Yeah.
is incredible and almost to be expected a little bit just with how popular Spider-Man is. But yeah, people seem to be loving it, and I can't fault them for that. But remember, kind of take it with a grain of salt because, as we know, especially us, through prior experience, these trailers are a little misleading a lot. You could think a movie's gonna be one way, Thor: Love and Thunder, and then it's gonna be totally different in the way that it's awful, like Thor: Love and Thunder, or Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. It can take big jumps in quality from trailer to movie. So, keep that in mind. Although a lot of me thinks that this won't be one of those movies. Watch, I just jinxed it and it's gonna be terrible. Um, but moving on from that, I kind of want to talk some NBA Finals as it's growing near, and right off the bat, Will. I mean, with what is it? Cade Cunningham, unfortunately having some lung issues, which will significantly affect the team. You know, with respect to them and all, I mean, it makes the Celtics have a much clearer path to the finals. I don't think he's going to be out that long. I think people are taking this collapsed lung thing as like, oh, he's going to be out for the season. I actually don't know if it's that serious. I mean, it's obviously serious. I'm not saying, I'm not undermining this terrible injury, which I don't even know how he sustained it. It wasn't in game as far as I know. I don't know how something like that is sustained. Nonetheless, it will make the Celtics be better with their record, and I think they'll start to lose some games over there without Cade. So it's gonna be good, and I think depending on how long he's out, I think that clears up the path a lot for the Celtics for the NBA Finals. So yeah, I think. I mean, it sounds biased, especially because I'm talking about him first, but I think it's possible we could see the Celtics in the final NBA Finals for sure, especially with the play Tatum and Brown are playing with, especially Jaylen Brown is playing right now, which is crazy, and it's even crazier that Jason Tatum is back, you know. And then, I think of teams like the Nuggets, who obviously playing great. The Lakers, I really have my eye on right now for NBA Finals potential, just with Luka Doncic literally scoring 100 points in the last two games, which is insane. Um, yeah, I think they're gonna have a shot if they keep playing like this. I've never really fully bought into JJ Redick's legitimacy as a head coach. Why? I can't give you one good reason, but it's almost like a vibe I feel like, and I see him yelling at these players. I don't know if that's how you coach in the NBA. I mean, you just compare his coaching style to someone like Joe Mazzulla, and you're like, oh, that's different. And that's why one of them is one of the best coaches in the NBA, and one of them's not. And that's not. I'm not saying he's a bad coach. I just don't think he's gonna be great going on in the future. But he has a chance to prove me wrong and make the NBA Finals, especially with the team that he has. Um, However, if they do make the finals this year, I'm telling you right now, LeBron is retiring. I don't think he'll come back next year if they make the NBA Finals, which is a real possibility. Um, there are other teams I'm looking at just, down the road. Obviously, I mean the Cavs are a really good team. You got a lot of factors. Obviously, OKC just playing outstanding, and I can't believe they have Jared McCain now. It's crazy. People are talking about it 'cause like it's the steal of the century, and it really is. They got him for not a lot, and it's really impressive. So what they're doing in OKC is special. Continues to be Shea is in his prime. He's a great athlete. He's nasty. Um, so yeah, that's always a looming threat. The Thunder. So keep an eye out there. I mean, there are other teams I could point out here, but Will, I do want to hear what you have to say.
Yeah, so I do agree that the Cade Cunningham situation kind of removes Detroit from NBA Finals contention. And in terms of who's going to make the finals this year, even though it does feel like, just due to salary cap restrictions and stuff along those lines, even though it does feel like we have moved on from the era where teams like the Warriors are going to be winning 4 championships in 8 years, because from 2019 all the way up to now, we have had a different team win the championship every single season. What you saw with the Warriors winning back to back in 2017 and 2018 just doesn't really feel like it's going to happen anymore. And yet, in spite of that, a Celtics Thunder finals just feels so likely to me because the Thunder are once again the number one seed in the Western Conference. SGA is just dominating at what feels to be just a historic level right now. The guy just feels unstoppable. And then I know Detroit is the current number one seed in the Eastern Conference, but due to this Cade Cunningham situation, I think the Celtics definitely deserve the title of best team in the East with the way they've been playing, and what makes them so scary. like I talked about on a prior episode, is you can no longer say Tatum is the number one scoring option, Brown's the number two scoring option. No, 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 no. Those guys are equally number one scoring options because they have both proven that they are that, and Jaylen Brown proved that this season, which just makes them even more scary. So I don't know who would win in a Thunder Celtics finals situation because both teams are so good. And I'm not saying I expect the Celtics or the Thunder to win 4 championships in 8 years like the Warriors did, but a finals matchup between those two teams just feels so likely to me right now because even though they've both won the championship in the last 2 seasons, it just feels like they're not slowing down one bit, either of them.
Yeah, 100%. I think if they were to make the finals against each other, I think it might come down to coaching, where the Celtics, I think, have an edge in Joe Mazzulla. Um, if not, then they'll lose, you know. And I think we have one of the best benches in the NBA. I mean, Peyton Pritchard is playing like a starter, you know. He's a tremendous athlete. He's got some of the best handles in the NBA. He's great. And I don't think other teams have six men like him, really, you know. So that's always a huge factor. And you know, with talking about these finals, Will, it has me thinking. I just think about these other teams who are doing worse, and it gets me so mad because there's something I hate that all these bad teams are doing, and it's the tanking. I hate this this mindset. Obviously, it makes sense. I'm not saying it doesn't make sense. I know why they're doing it, but what I am saying is that it is ruining the NBA. Why would I ever want to watch two teams that don't want to win play each other? What in what world would anyone want to do that? It makes me sick. I think I touched on it last episode, but I'm just so sick of it. I mean, I watch the Celtics play the Grizzlies, and I want to throw up just watching how bad these Grizzlies are. It's embarrassing. I can't even name a player on the Grizzlies besides John Morant who was playing. Or actually, no, Ja wasn't even playing. I don't know anyone who was on the Grizzlies, and I mean that's probably a little bit on me for not having as much Grizzlies ball knowledge as I should, but nonetheless, I mean, if your team's gonna be this bad, at least try, put them a fight. It just makes me sick, because why would I want to watch that? You know, it's annoying. And Will, I don't know. Is it possible that if your Warriors lose a few more games, they'll start committing this awful sin that is tanking?
I mean, I I'm not gonna totally rule it out because they are just they just look like such a fading, dying dynasty right now that, maybe they'll keep Steph out for the rest of the season. But I'm also like, maybe they won't tank because it seems like they're going to get at least the 10th seed and be in the play-in tournament because all the teams below them in the Western Conference just have such terrible records that it seems like there really isn't a chance that they're going to fall below the 10th seed. So because they're going to make the play-in tournament, that makes me think, maybe Steph will come back and they'll at least try and get into the playoffs, even if they did, I would expect them to lose in the first round to a team like the Thunder. So, um, I think there's a chance that Steph comes back, but you also can't rule out taking because they're not winning the championship this season. So maybe they will try and keep Steph out for the rest of the year. And I agree with you that there's a lot of negative aspects to it. First of all, it's disrespectful
I
to,
think it's all negative, frankly.
oh
I mean,
yeah,
I except for like the goal, the outcome of tanking, I guess is good, but
yeah,
just the whole idea of it makes me sick.
yep. And it's disrespectful to the fan bases of those teams who are paying money to see good basketball games and to have to watch their team intentionally try to lose. It's disrespectful to the fans who are paying money for the games, and it doesn't create good team mojo and good team culture within a team. If you are head coaches on a basketball team and you're sending a message to your team of we are going to intentionally tank. We are going to intentionally try and lose these games. We are intentionally going to not try and win. We are going to intentionally not try and put up a fight. It just creates bad team mojo and bad team culture. And yeah, I just think I just think it doesn't set a good example. And I feel like there's been, you know, plenty of situations throughout the history of sports that go to show why tanking is not good. Let's look at the Warriors team that won the championship in 2022. It's not like anybody expected them to be bad or tanking level bad that season, but nobody would have expected them to win the championship in 2022, and yet they did. So I feel like there's been so much evidence throughout the history of sports of teams who you're not expecting to do well, but they go out, compete really hard, and do way better than you would expect. And I feel like these, teams that are trying to tank need to take a look at these examples throughout the history of sports and say, hey, if we have coaches who send a message to our players of we're going to go out and compete really hard every night, doesn't mean those teams are going to win the championship, but maybe they could surprise some people and do better than folks thought they would.
100%. But with that, that wraps up this episode of the Everything Podcast. I want to thank you all for watching. I'm glad we got to talk about the NBA Finals, and we'll see you next time.